Hello and welcome. I'm Carolyn, and your neighborhood show is about drawing out amazing stories of everyday people, of times in their lives when they have felt both connected and supported, as well as when they have felt disconnected and unsupported. And the aim is to normalize both connection as well as disconnection as being part of life. None of us escapes feeling disconnected at some point in our life, and that's okay and perfectly normal. But how do we then move from feeling disconnected and unsupported to being able to thrive in our lives? Your neighborhood show celebrates life by acknowledging all aspects of being human, up, down, and all over the place. That's the nature of life itself. So let's feel it, experience it, and celebrate it. Welcome. Our guest today is Jordan Lobo. And Jordan is an amazing young man. He's 21 years of age. He's also my nephew, so it's been an amazing journey getting to know you, Jordan, over the last couple of days. And I'm so proud of him and his story, and I'm sure lots of people are going to be quite moved when he starts talking about it. He has been in Australia for 1.5 years. He's studying at Griffith University, and he's studying art. And he tells me he absolutely loves his course as well as Australia. Welcome to the podcast, Jordan.
Hi, it's very nice to be here.
And how are you feeling?
Nervous.
Yes.
Actually. And,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a normal kind of experience when people first come in over here. And by the way, I'm always nervous every time I record it. So within about 10 minutes, you'll be relaxed and it's just like having a chat. So first of all, thank you so much for accepting the invitation to share your life with us. And I know you're going to share some pretty raw stuff. And I'm really so proud of you, of where you've been and what you've come through and how you're working your life now. So getting stuck right into it, I know from what you've told me that your younger years, from 0 till about 8 or 9 or 10, were magical, and you've shared some fun stories with me about mom and dad and grandpa and all of that. So share some of that with us.
Where to start? So I could probably begin by telling you about how my mother used to play little tricks on us as kids to get us to do what she wanted. Probably one of the most vivid memories must have been my 4th birthday. And my mum, after my birthday party, didn't really feel like cleaning up. So she was really smart. She devised a game. And she said, okay, whoever can clean up, pop the most balloons and put them in this bucket wins the game. And then, of course, me, 4-year-old, I'm going to do it. I'll pop the most balloons. I'm going to get the most. And then we went around popping all the balloons, putting them in the bucket. Then after that, she's like, whoever puts the most dishes in the sink wins. I'm going to win. I'm going to get the most. And so we cleaned up the whole party.
Oh, that's a good trick.
There were lots of moments like that when I was really young. And then in a similar light, I think my mom also helped me a lot when I was young, like sort of like think through these philosophical situations. I'd just random theory. I remember I must have been around 6 or 7, and I really liked this one girl in nursery, but I also really liked this girl in dance class.
Uh-huh.
And so one day my mom sits down and she asks me this question. She says, so about this girl at your nursery, you like her? And I'm like, yeah, I do. So she's like, so what are you gonna do like when you grow up?
And how old were you again?
Must have been like 6
Okay.
or maybe 7. She's like, what are you going to do once you grow up? Like, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, And I'm very deep thinking about when I'll be 40. And I was like, I'm going to marry her. And she's like, oh, okay. Where are you going to stay? And then me not wanting to leave my parents at the age of 6, I was like, I'll sleep with you. How old are you in this scenario? 40. And so my mom is now having this visual of me at home with my wife being married, living in her house at the age of 40.
That's hilarious.
And at the time, my aunt, my mother's sister, was living with us on a mattress inside my room. And so she's like, but what about your aunt? Where's she going to stay? And I was like, on the mattress. So now the living situation is my mom and dad, myself and my wife, and then my aunt on the mattress inside my room still.
So your aunt is living in your bedroom with
On
your
a
wife,
mattress.
and you are
And so I'm sleeping
you're with your
my
wife.
Yeah.
Okay. And mom and dad
then-
in their bedroom.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
And then my mom asks, but what about this girl at dance class? What are you going to do? Now I have the 6-year-old me has this huge dilemma in front of him. Gosh, I can't decide. So I go,
So you liked two girls.
I'll marry her also. I'll marry her as well. So now I was like, okay then. So where is she going to stay? So I have this deep think and I come to probably my best solution. So you both can sleep in your room. Me talking about my mother and my dad. Y'all can sleep in your room. My wives, both of them, can sleep on my bed.
Mhm.
My aunt can sleep on the mattress, and I'll sleep between you.
Between mom and dad.
Yeah. So I think at that point, my mom had like this, she got very like taken aback because she stopped asking questions because now she's having this visual of me, 40-year-old me, sleeping between her and my father with my two wives inside my bedroom and my Masi on the mattress.
That's so funny. And I'm sure she's retold that story a few times.
Every single time. And it's so embarrassing.
Ah, that's so sweet. And then you also, I know you had you got some fun memories of your grandfather, your dad's dad.
Yes. So not every weekend, but granddad and grandma used to live about 4 hours of a drive away from where we used to live in another city. And so every so often we'd go down to their place for a weekend. And I remember I would go at 6:30 in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning. I'd wake up, I'd go and have my chai inside the kitchen. And at 6:30 sharp, I'd be watching the clock. At 6:30 sharp, I would go into grandpa's room and he'd be sitting on the couch with his leg crossed over. And he'd have the newspaper, the morning newspaper, and he'd be doing his little Sudoku.
That's the
And-
maths puzzle thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I'd get into his bed and I'd lay down next to him and I'd help him solve the Sudoku. And it ended up developing like a big love for numbers for me. And then as I kept doing it, eventually my mum got me a little Sudoku book and then I'd take it and then I'd solve mine and he'd solve his and then I'd show him and then he'd be like, good job. And I also remember like he used to come out like in Christmases, he'd dress up as Santa and
Yeah.
he'd come out dressed up as Santa and I'd be like, Santa Claus. And I'd know it was him, but it used to absolutely make my day. And in the evenings, he'd pour himself a rum and soda and he'd sit down on a sofa similar to this one. And there was a little coffee table and then there was another sofa. So I would go to the kitchen, I'd pour myself a little bit of Coca-Cola in like a similar looking glass and I'd put it next to his and then I'd sit in the sofa next to him and I'd pretend like I was drinking the same thing he was and I'd like act like him all suave.
That's
Yeah.
that's so sweet. I know when we love or admire an adult, we tend to want to mimic them. And I actually remember that. I remember doing that myself as a young girl with this aunt that I used to really admire. Try and kind of watch her and, see what I can do to copy her kind of thing. Even teachers, That's so sweet. Thank you for sharing those stories. When your mom and dad hear that,
Oh
they're going to
God,
have
I am not going to hear the
replay
end of it.
of laughter. And then I know in your early teens, you had this really not so nice incident that happened that kind of shaped the next quite a few years of your life. And I know it's quite raw and this thing, but you're happy to share that, yeah?
Yeah. So when this would have been in, I think, early 7th grade. I would have been about 12. And so I was really into this one girl. And I remember I was on my couch in my living room and I was playing video games and I had like my little headset in and I had my friends on voice chat and I got a phone call. So I picked up my phone and little Nokia phone and I looked at the thing and her name was there and I got like really excited. I was like, oh my God, like she's calling me. So then I told my friends on voice chat, I'm like, okay, I can't talk right now. I will be back in like 10 minutes. So promptly disconnected the voice chat, picked up the phone, and I heard her on the other end. And she basically told me that, hey, I have feelings for you. And then cut the
Wow.
call. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best day ever.
All my Christmases have
Yeah, my
come.
Christmas. This is a dream come. So I pick up the phone, I call her back, and I'm like, look, like I
So hang on.
also
She told you she has feelings for you and then she hangs up.
yes. So I call her back, and then I say, look, I also kind of have feelings for you, and and so she's like, okay, and then cuts the call again. So I'm not too bothered because now we've figured out we both have a thing, and I figured because this was Sunday, I figured on the next day on Monday we'd figure things out once we got to school. So next morning I wake up all very feeling macho, very happy, and I remember walking into our classroom and I see her hand in hand with my best friend at the time. And he was already very aware that I'd been very into her because I mean, he was my best friend. I used to talk to him about her all the time. And he'd never made it at all clear that he was ever into her whatsoever. And so they ended up making it very physically evident over the course of the next few months or so that they were together. And I obviously felt incredibly betrayed. And
Devastated. Would
very.
have been, yeah.
And I wish I could say that was the worst of it, but as I was at the end of that year, I was planning on leaving the school. And so my friends were having a farewell party for me. And she felt really guilt-ridden, and she came up to me and she apologized, and she was like, look, here's what actually happened. And then she told me that basically the entire thing had been orchestrated by my best friend.
Wow.
And it was all supposed to be like an elaborate prank because he knew that I was very into her. So it was his idea that they keep up like this huge pretense that maybe she'd have like feelings for me, and like he thought it would be really fun to like drag me along and then
That is
end
so
up pretending
wicked.
like they were in a relationship for that entire time. And then basically what that ended up doing was I ended up having very severe trust issues after that because he was probably the only person I ever told anything to at all. And
So it's not only a betrayal of a close friend, your closest friend is betraying your trust, as in going, and then he plays this prank, and this girl that you really like is also kind of, that's horrible. And a young teenager and young boy. So it's, I'm so sorry, Jordan. That's, and did you talk to anybody about it? Did you go and tell mom and dad or any other friend?
no,
or
of course
anyone?
not. Because it was way too embarrassing to talk about at the time. And I
Of
thought it was the
course.
end of the world. And so for me, I was looking at the scenario and I just, like, it felt so bad to feel those things at that time that I didn't even want to speak about it because I felt like if I spoke about it, it would just make it worse.
Young teenagers are quite treacherous. I remember my own daughter, when she was in school, she went through quite a bit of this sort of stuff. Nothing as horrific as that, but that's like a blow from all angles. It's really, yeah. And anyway, so you decided that you were not going to trust anybody again.
Yeah.
That's a huge one. So tell me a little bit more about that. What does that look like?
So at the time, obviously, I was not necessarily as aware of what I started doing as I am now. But
So, sorry, just to interrupt you there. Was that like a conscious decision you made? I'm not going to trust anybody, or you think it?
I think initially it wasn't a conscious decision, but as I did it more and more, I realized that it was. And then I sort of solidified it as one of my morals that like, I don't want to be vulnerable with anyone. And the way that took form was I started sort of building these masks whenever I would talk to people and sort of building like this pretense. And
What kind of a mask?
for me, it came sort of by hiding behind certain things. So primarily, like I was a very good achiever in school and I was decently fit, I would say. And so I would basically hold these things up as barriers and basically hide myself behind them.
So you decided to get better at schoolwork, academics, and fitness. Is that what you're saying? That
It
those
was
were your.
basically like a very good distraction, both for me and for other people. Because if I can pretend like these are the only things that matter to me, the actual things that I care about can never get hurt.
Wow. I think a lot of us do that as young kids. We don't even realize we're doing it, but something happens and then we take on a certain way of being that'll kind of protect us, but also help us and make us. And I think we call that personality. That would how our personalities get formed, I suppose. So then you said you were leaving that school, and I know you went to boarding school. Was that same year? That was the
That
boarding
was,
school.
yes.
What was that like for you? Because here you are now, and you haven't spoken to mom and dad about this incident at school. And then you're soon getting ready to go off to boarding school, leaving the comfort of your home. What was that like, going to boarding school, and how did you deal with your first year at school far away from home, because it was up north India? Yeah.
So initially, the decision to go to boarding school was mine. My parents influenced me to check out what it would be like by bribing me with a PlayStation. And I was like, that
A
seems
what?
like a
The
PlayStation.
Nice.
And they said, as long as you just go to the thing and look at it, you don't have to say yes, we will give it to you. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a great deal.
Yeah.
And in the end, they got what they wanted as well, because I decided that actually looks really cool. And I decided to go to boarding school. I remember like a day before, I got really cold feet and I started throwing these teenage tantrums. Like, you don't love me. You don't care about me. You're just sending me away because you want to live without me. And it was really hard because I'd also never gone on a school trip or anything. I'd never been away from my parents before. So this was like a very different experience. But I did find that I started to enjoy boarding school. But on the flip side of things, there was also this side of boarding school that was really difficult, because coming out of the previous year, I had decided that I don't want to really be vulnerable or share myself with other people. And I sort of want to build these personas, these masks for when I interact with other people. And I started finding that because in boarding school, you live with your peers, I never really got an opportunity to drop.
So
said
you
masks.
lived in the same room kind of thing? Yeah.
So I had 5 roommates, and I found that I could never really drop this sort of like persona that I'd built for myself. And that started making it really difficult.
This perfect Jordan that
Exactly.
studies hard, looks fit, and is funny. You're quite funny as well. Yeah.
And so what ended up happening was, as the year went on, it became harder for me to keep up the masks while staying somewhat sane. But it also became harder for me to drop the masks, because then I started thinking about, well, what are they going to think if they realize that I've been lying to them for like half a year or a year or 2 years? And this just went on and on and on, where the lie just got so big that it became impossible to admit. And it became something that was really difficult.
So pretending you're something you're not.
Yes.
Like, were you able to kind of say, did you feel confident to speak your mind at times, Jordan?
Never.
Or no?
I don't think I ever once opened up about how I properly felt about anything. Like, even if it could have been like the smallest thing that hurt me. Like maybe someone not taking me into consideration when making some silly decision about, like, I don't know, what they wanted to cook for our room or whatever. And even if that hurt, I didn't care. Like, I wouldn't say anything about it, because I felt like even that little bit of vulnerability could be used against me.
So you became stoic.
Yes.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a natural, some of us use that as a natural coping mechanism. I know I myself did that as a young girl. And whilst it helps you, it also stops you. They say numbing isn't selective. If you numb yourself to pain, you also numb yourself to love, kind of thing, So anyway, carry on. So then
that basically went on.
So you're living this lie at school, not living a lie, but living a way that's not authentic to who you really are, pretending you are something that you're not, kind of thing. And I know, and then you had a significant other incident in school where you had a bit of a light bulb moment. Tell us whatever you want about that one.
So we were on a trip,
Yeah.
and this was a hiking trip.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go into too much detail because it's
Mm-hmm.
still very visceral, like it's
Yeah.
burned into my memory.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a moment on that trip where my life basically flashed in front of my eyes. And I remember in that exact moment, my thoughts were that I didn't care
You didn't care about.
about whether or not I would have died. And that moment, while it wasn't eye-opening at the time, for me, what it was it made me still very confused because I didn't know why I felt that way. Because to some extent, I'd gotten so good at lying to other people, it became easy to start lying to myself about things as well. Like even if I would feel bad about something, I'd be like, "No, it's okay. Like you don't have to make a big deal out of it. It's fine." And so this lie had gotten so big, it was starting to affect my own mind. And then I remember in that moment, I just kept thinking, I could have died. That could have been the end. But
It didn't matter to you
it
whether
didn't
you
matter because I didn't care if I could have.
Wow. So were you able to kind of reason in your head why you had that kind of feeling, or you just had that feeling in that moment and then you decided to look into it later on?
So I don't think in that moment I was ever quite able to figure it out. But in hindsight, I definitely can say it's because I wasn't myself anymore because I felt like I was living the life of another person.
So you didn't like yourself?
I loathed myself.
Wow. And how old were you about this time?
This would have been in about 10th grade, so I think I must have been around 15 or 16.
Such a vulnerable age. And so that year, so what year is that? What year are we talking? 2018 or 19 or something? And then
19
I remember,
maybe.
yes, so then COVID happened and then you came back for the holidays,
Yes.
you said, and your girlfriend, you had a girlfriend in school, yeah?
Mm-hmm. So
how was that? How did you navigate that in this way of being?
basically, so our relationship had been very on and off for like a good while. Mostly because she didn't know what she wanted, I didn't know what I wanted, and then we'd have these little fights and breakups, as you do as teenagers. And so I think it was supposed to be our 1-year anniversary, and she was planning on staying at school for the spring break. And I had the bright idea of, well, since our anniversary is during the spring break, why don't you come over to my place and I can introduce you to my parents, and we can just hang around the city and have a good time for 3 or 4 days.
Just to go back a step there, when you had that incident on that, I was kind of going around in my head there. Did you talk to your girlfriend about it at the time?
No,
You didn't talk to
I
anyone?
didn't tell anyone.
You talked to mom and dad?
Nope.
No, you just again kept that decided.
Because again, it's something that could have been
you'd be
used
making
against
yourself
me.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So you're, as a young teenager, you're holding a lot in.
Not my best decision.
Well, it's a coping mechanism. That's what we do to deal with vulnerability that's been abused, kind of. Okay, continue coming. So your girlfriend, sorry I interrupted you there, but I needed to get that clarity. So it was your girlfriend was coming back.
Yeah, so she was going to come back. Our parents had, my parents and her parents had a discussion about it, and they figured it's fine. And then she ended up staying over she was supposed to stay over for about 3 or 4 days. But then the friend's house who she was supposed to go to for the rest of the spring break, it was about a week of a break, so she was supposed to leave on the 4th day, ended up canceling. Because that's around when the COVID scare started happening. And her friend was a little bit nervous about having her travel. So her friend canceled, and my mom and dad were very accommodating. They were like, yeah, no worries, you can stay for the rest of the week before you go back to school. I remember one day before we were supposed to go back to school, the school sends out an email and they say that, look, we're going to delay by about 2 weeks. So at this point, we're like, okay, well, you don't really have anywhere else to go, so you might as well just stay here then. And after about a week passed, then the school sent out another email and they're like, we're not actually opening it all. If we open, we'll see you next year.
Oh, because of lockdown.
Yes. And so then she starts trying to look for flights back home, but then just as she was, then international flights closed.
Oh my goodness.
And so she ended up being locked down in the house with us for about 6 months, because no matter what she tried, we tried the embassy and everything.
What was
and
that
she could
like,
never-
having your girlfriend staying with you for 6 months? That would have been, you'd have been stoked at 15.
At that age, like, I'm not gonna lie, like initially I was like, oh my God, like I'm living with, like, what more could I want? But I did find that because I was living with her for so long, what ended up sort of happening was I was very used to holding up this mask in front of my roommates at this point. But even in a relationship, I don't think I was quite used to it. So there were like moments where I would try to get away so that I could sort of like drop the
Breathe.
mask and breathe.
Yeah.
But because we were living together, those opportunities never really came up. And the few times that they did, she'd always want to spend time together, which in hindsight, of course she does. Like, she's away from her family. She's having a really hard time as well. But for me, all I could see it as was suffocating. And I found it really, really difficult. And so her dealing with not being able to see her family and being really worried about them, and me dealing with my own issues of not being able to just breathe
Say what you want to say.
and be myself, we started getting really toxic with each other. And I remember as she was leaving lockdown, about a couple of weeks later, I gave her some time to spend some time with her family and whatnot.
What do you mean? Tell me about that. What do you mean you gave her some time? Like, she was going back?
So when she went back home after the 6 months,
Yeah.
I gave her some time to spend time with her family and be with her family. And then I called her up and I broke up with her over the phone.
Right.
And that moment for me was very scary because I didn't realize this. I only found out because we had a conversation about it about a year ago. Because we're like friends now. But she told me apparently I was very numb and I was I was emotionless. And for a relationship,
when you broke up
where
with
you
her on
have-
the phone, this is, yeah.
Exactly. And for a relationship where you have a year together, it felt like I was a sociopath. And that really scared me because I started, basically that sent me on this entire like mental trip of starting to think that maybe I was a sociopath because
Oh.
I'd been emotionless for so long in front of everybody. I felt like I didn't know how to express emotion anymore.
Wow, that's such a great insight though. But for a young, how old were you then?
Would have been 16 maybe.
16,
15 or
17.
16 probably.
Yeah, such great insight. Anyway, keep going. Sorry. I'm
So-
blown away, Jordan, that you've even, not only you're 21 now, but you've had so much, you're so wise around what's happened and been able to dissect and look at it and see, why you did what you did and how it's all happened. Like, I'm in awe of you. Really, I am. And you're my nephew. I'm so proud. Sorry, keep going.
So at that point, I think our relationship ended, of course. I broke up with her. And I finally had the breathing room that I'd always wanted, because now we were in lockdown. We were in like the head of lockdown, and proper COVID had like started, and you weren't allowed to like go out, meet people, and there was no one else at home. And so I was like, oh my God, I could be
I can be
I'm free.
myself.
But what that ended up devolving into was my safe space, sort of.
What's the word you use? Devolving.
Devolving.
As in,
Yeah. And it ended up becoming, it devolved into me basically staying in my room all day, because even seeing my parents felt like I would have to sort of like lie to them, tell them like, things are okay, things are going well. And I
remember that.
I found so much comfort in just being in my own space that even I started not going to my classes or like turning off my camera in our class meetings, because trying to present myself to other people became really difficult.
So when you say camera, you were
This
doing
was Zoom
online
calls.
class.
Yeah.
You,
We had online classes.
with school, because you didn't
Yeah.
go back to school. Okay, yeah.
And so I'd start keeping my camera off just because I didn't want to present myself to other people. And then I started eating more and more and more to deal with the stress of, just having to go to class every day. And it's not like I went out and exercised either. I would just stay at home and all I did was eat and sleep and sit in my room. And I remember I started playing video games a lot at that time because it became a really good outlet for me to just escape.
Mm.
Because when you're playing a video game, you don't have to think about your life or who you are or anything. You can sort of like ascribe your own personality to this character inside
Was
a
that
virtual
about the time
world.
when you had put on a lot of weight?
Yes.
I remember I'd come and visited, and yeah, you were, and used to stay in your room a lot, and I used to say, Jordan, come on out, have dinner with us or lunch with us, and you said, no, I just want to be in my room. So yeah, okay, it all makes sense now.
And so that went on for the better part of about a year. And I remember for our senior year, we got called back for our last semester to spend time at school. And part of me was really scared. Part of me was a little bit happy that, at least I'd get to see my friends one last time before, we graduate.
So you were one of those students that did your last couple of years of school online rather than in the physical.
Yeah.
I know it was a very difficult time for a lot of those, that group of, cohort of students. So then you went back to school?
So our last semester was supposed to be in person. And I remember I was kind of happy about being able to see everyone again, but I was also really scared because I hadn't been in front of people for so long. Like, it had gotten to an extent where I wouldn't even invite people for my own birthday. I think my friends had to throw a birthday party, like a surprise birthday party for me. And they threw it inside my own house and I didn't know because I didn't used to leave my room at all. And that's like the extent of how bad it had gotten, like my own self-isolation. So the prospect of going back to school is very daunting. And I remember this moment I set foot in the dormitory, the first thing someone said to me wasn't, "Hi Jordan, how have you been? How was COVID?" The first thing that I heard from someone was, "Oh my God, you're so fat."
Wow.
And when you look at yourself in the mirror every single day, it becomes really hard to spot the gradual change. And you never really see it head on because you're so used to just looking at yourself all the time that, like, as you slowly change or as your body slowly changes, you're just like, oh, this is just how I look. I used to be fairly fit. I was about like 73 kilograms.
And you pride, you
it was
took
one of
pride in
my-
being fit, yeah.
It was one of my like masks, one of
Yeah.
my big pillars, right?
Yeah.
Was that I am fit and I am decently athletic. And so when I went back that year for our last semester, I weighed 110 kilos. For perspective, I'm 5'10". So I was medically classified obese. And I couldn't walk very well either. I remember my shins couldn't support my weight because we had to walk up 2 kilometers every morning to get to school. And my shins couldn't support my weight very well. So I ended up very embarrassingly needing to go to the school health center to ask them for ambulance slips because I couldn't walk up anymore. And so what I started realizing was I wanted to sort of keep these masks up, but I didn't have it any. Like the mask that I'd kept up for so long, I no longer had. I couldn't pretend to hide behind this athletic fit persona because I was no longer athletic and fit. And so that sort of pillar just crumbled. The second big pillar was me, as you'd said, I was rather humorous and I felt like I was rather sociable.
That's
because
all.
I
I
used to
remember you
be-
as a kid.
Like
You
yapping.
yap a lot, and yeah.
And because I spent so much time in isolation, that sort of crumbled as well. And I didn't know how to talk to people anymore. And I would find every time someone said something, I would just be incredibly awkward and I wouldn't know how to respond. And the third pillar of my mask was that I was academically, I had academic
grades.
prowess. I was good. I used to get good grades. But because I'd stopped paying attention in class, because I used to turn off my camera and feel really nice about not needing to show myself to anyone, my grades had slipped to the point where my entire life I've gone never getting below the equivalent of like an A in anything. And at this point I was borderline failing all of my classes. And
Goodness.
so going back, I no longer knew how to interact with anyone because I sort of felt like a fish out of water because everyone is kind of figuring themselves out, and here I am like not knowing.
So you finished school and you've come back home. This was what, 2019 now?
This would have been so this is
2021.
This is 22 before my graduation when I'm at school.
Yeah. But then you finished that and then you finished school.
Yeah.
So all what you've just shared to me was what happened at school. So you've kind of, your whole persona is kind of disintegrated. And you went through a bit of low time, and you told me you were taking some antidepressants at some point. Was that before you went to school or after you came home from school?
So I started, it's a little bit difficult to place, but I'm pretty sure I started the antidepressants before I went to school.
Before you went, okay.
Because my mum started recognizing that I might have been a little bit depressed.
Yeah.
So I believe she had gotten me to go see a psychiatrist, and they'd put me on both antidepressants as well as ADHD medication.
And did they help you, Jordan?
It's sort of, they just turned everything off is probably the best way I can describe it. It sort of just took me from like color TV to gray TV. So if red as a color was really triggering for me, I couldn't see red anymore, but I also couldn't see like yellow, blue, or green. Or
so like another version of numbing yourself. Wow. God, I'm so proud of you. That's all I can say. And then, so you finish school and then you come back. And I know you said you failed your one part, like there were 2 parts of your final year, correct? And you failed one part.
So for us in school, we have 2 diplomas. We have one which is our high school diploma and one which is our IBDP diploma, which is our board. So I passed my high school diploma because I got all my credits. I did everything I was supposed to do. But my IBDP diploma, I failed on the basis of, I think, 3 subjects because I'd done very badly. And this was probably the point at which I was my lowest because I felt like I'd failed everything and I felt like a failure and I felt like I was useless and I couldn't do anything and I couldn't accomplish anything. I was fat, I was lonely, didn't know how to talk to people, and the only thing that I could have maybe had a semblance of hope for, which was my grades, was gone as well. And I remember having a conversation with my dad, and my dad had told me, he said, it's fine if you fail, you can just try again. And we had this whole conversation about sort of failing forward, and I didn't
failing forward.
And at the time I didn't understand it at all. And so I just decided, okay, I'm just going to try again. So I tried again and I passed some of the things that I needed to. So you
get a chance to rewrite the exam, is it?
Yes. And I passed some of the things that I needed to, but I failed on the basis of art, which is actually kind of funny.
That's so funny.
Because now I'm at art school, but I failed on the basis of my art. And this now was probably the worst I'd felt thus far because of all of the things to fail on, I'd failed specifically on the one thing that I enjoyed doing the most. And I remember my dad saw me when I'd gotten my grades and he asked me to sit down with him and we'd have this conversation. And he told me about failing forward again. And the first time I didn't really understand what he meant because I hadn't opened my ears. I hadn't listened to him. So this time I decided, okay, you know what? I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just going to sit down. I'm going to listen. And he basically told me that failure is something that's okay, like it's acceptable. And you should be okay with falling down, because at the end of the day, if you don't fall down, you can't pick yourself up. And if you don't fall down, you'll never have any injuries that'll grow scar tissue and heal and get better, so that part of you becomes stronger. So
Great advice.
Failing is a very important part of life that you need to learn. And for me, I never learned failure because I spent
To fail and be okay with failing.
Exactly.
Knowing that it's a stepping stone to getting better kind of thing. Wow.
And I never
That's
learned
good.
failure because I had never failed up to that point.
Yes.
So I didn't know how to deal
Because you
with
had
it.
this facade on of being perfect
Exactly.
Jordan.
Because I had this huge facade of I do everything perfectly. Every time I ever got close to failing, I would feel like, okay, my facade's going to drop and I'd abandon ship. So I never learned how to deal with it. And so
this was the point of recovery for you after you had this conversation with your dad.
whether he knew it or not,
Yeah.
that conversation not only helped me sort of sort out this entire failure situation, but it also helped me kind of make sense of like all these facades I'd been building for myself. Because I started looking at that as sort of like unnecessary pain to go through, where I can't just hole up and hide away forever.
Yeah.
And otherwise I'm not going to grow. And I don't know if he knew when we had that conversation.
Well, he's going to find out now.
Now he's going to know. But I don't know if he
And
knew
I'm sure
how
you'll be
much that
smiling and feel very good about him. About it, yeah.
After that conversation, I remember I told them I wanted a year off before I went to uni, because I needed time to myself and not to hide away or fix. I didn't give them the details.
I
didn't
remember
give Mom
that
and
you
Dad
were
the
going to come
details.
to Australia, and then I remember Mom saying that he's going to defer a year and come next year. So you had this year up your sleeve, basically.
So I didn't tell them the details of why. I just asked them very kindly. I'm like, look, I'm kind of going through something. Would you mind if I deferred and I just stayed at home for a year? They were very supportive and they said, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, they didn't ask too many questions. And that year for me was hard. It was a very good learning experience, because what I started to do during that year was I started to teach myself that it's okay to be somewhat vulnerable with myself. I wasn't confident enough to go around telling people about my problems at all at this point. Not at all. But I found that it was okay to, I still loathed myself. I would look in the mirror and I would say, I hate myself. I hate that part of me. I hate this part of me. But the truth of it is, I could now at least verbalize it. Whereas earlier it would have all been mental. So at least I was able to say it out loud. And I think that was the first big step in being able to fix things, was just acknowledging the fact that I was saying these things to myself on a daily basis. Like, my mantra became, I hate myself. Which, of course, in hindsight, it's a very difficult space to be in. But also, I'd been in that space subconsciously for so long that even just acknowledging it made it feel better.
Yes, like
Even
they say,
if
the
it
first
was-
step to recovery is acknowledgement.
Yeah. Even if it was just still negative self-talk, at least now it
You
was
saw it, yeah.
there. Like, I knew it was happening.
And then what did you do to get better, to improve yourself? How did you get yourself out of this hole? And I'm so mindful of the fact that you're doing this all by yourself, because you haven't told anybody about what you're dealing with so far. It's all Jordan within the confines of Jordan's mind, kind of. So, I mean, it's an amazing recovery story, and how you've been through this by yourself, Jordan. So tell us, what did you do, the little baby steps that you took in that 1 year to get to, you look amazing now. and so tell us.
So the biggest thing, I think, was based off my dad's words, I stopped seeing failure as a problem. So when I started thinking about how bad of a spot I was in, as far as, like, let's say my health was concerned, rather than eating a snack and then beating myself up over it and being like, oh my God, you're so fat. Like, how can you not? Like, you're just a tub of lard. Like, how can you have a snack like that? Instead of beating myself up over it, I would be like, okay, you had a snack. That's fine. You can try again next time. And so the next time I would try again, and then I'd fail again, and I'd be like, oh, it's fine. You'll do it next time. And sort of got into this space where rather than beating myself up over the mistakes I was making, I was consciously allowing and forgiving myself for those mistakes and saying, it's fine, you'll do better next time.
So good.
And the longer that I went about doing that, eventually, 1 in 100 times, I would look at that snack and be like, you know what? I'm not going to eat it. Or I would look at my phone and look at like a friend calling me, and I'd be like, you know what? I'll pick up the phone. I'm not just going to cut the call or let it ring out.
So
And
good.
it would be 1 in 100. It wouldn't even be like someone else would look at it and be like, how can you call this progress? But the difference is that it went from being 0 in 100 to 1 in 100.
Yeah.
Which
and
was
that's
a huge
progress.
step, because going from 0 to 1 meant that I was then able to eventually know that I can do 1 to 2.
And all from that failing forward advice.
Yeah.
So Dad's going to be smiling from one ear to the other when he hears this. But that's amazing. And I really acknowledge both your mom and dad for even allowing you the space to grow the way you needed to grow, Jordan. That's so amazing to have parents like that. So
I'm very lucky.
yes, absolutely. So I think we're coming close to the end of our podcast, and I can't stop saying how proud I am of you and you're flourishing at your uni, and you look amazing, and you've become super extra responsible because you cook your own food, you shop, you can navigate public transport in Australia like the back of your hands. I've been here 37 years and I still can't travel, confidently. I honestly can't travel by public transport. I'm terrible. Yeah, that's a good idea. So I'm just going to end. We're going to end here with just one last question in one sentence. If you can tell us, what piece of advice would you give yourself for the rest of your life? In one sentence.
Stop being your own worst critic.
Nice.
People need to stop being so hard on themselves and allow yourself to make mistakes, because
Yes.
otherwise you're never going to grow.
Be
And
kind to yourself.
love yourself for the mistakes you make.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Jordan. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and I know lots of young people will gain a lot from listening to you. Not only young, but even anyone will gain from listening to your story. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. If you've liked and enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to our channel and hit like on the like button so that our stories can get out there far and wide and people can learn from everyday people with amazing stories. Thank you.